All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Building Secure Authentication for Connected and Non-Connected Government Systems. We want to welcome everybody. I think we got everybody's logos here, with the exception of one, because Department of Justice doesn't want us posting things publicly. I learned that lesson. You want to know how I know that, Dovell?
Oh.
I got a call from a special inspector.
Those you don't like.
Investigator. She said, I'm with the FBI. I said, you have my attention. So that's why we do that. Welcome to Dovell Burnett, right? That's how you say your last name?
Yep.
And Dietrich Wecker. Dovell is the founder and CEO of Access Smart, and Dietrich is the CTO and all-around good guy. How did that get in there, Dietrich? That's fantastic.
Had to be mentioned.
And I'm Dave Lowe. I'm your GovBrief host today. Quick disclaimer, this session includes vendor-provided solution case studies. So these are federal agencies that are using your products, right, Dovell? And that makes me say this because GSA makes me say it, that it's not affiliated or endorsed by GSA or any other agency. It's provided to you for information purposes only, and participation is voluntary. And any engagement, this makes you be able to talk with us. By government personnel is not an endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor, including us, Access Smart. It is being recorded. We will be providing CLP credits. They may require supervisor approval, but we want to make sure that you know that you can get those. All you have to do is ask, and we'll make sure you get those. The case studies we're going to be talking about will include Power On, which is your product, right, Dovell?
Power Log On, yep.
Yep, Power Log On. And NASA Soup, it's available on NASA Soup and GSA schedules. Not you don't have them, but through your partners.
Through our resellers, our contracted resellers.
Love it, love it. Participation is easy. We're going to put the docs into the chat in just a minute, and you can ask questions whenever you want. You can raise your hand. If you have a microphone, we'll unmute you. We love those, don't we, Dovell? Love that. But you can pop into the Q&A. I'll try to pay attention to everything. If you have something that you don't want everybody and their mother to see, send it to this address, which is Dovell at access-smart.com, or you can call them at any time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop the handouts into the chat. Let me go grab this and put this in right now. And we're going to append these as we go because you got a couple other things you're going to drop in there. So do me a favor, if you would, pop open this and make sure that it looks like, what happened here? That's not, hold on, guys. That has not updated the way it should. I'm going to check on that and make sure you get it. And while I'm checking on that, I'm going to launch this particular poll, which asking why you're here. Are you on the hook for ZTA, Zero Trust Architecture, or MFA? That stands for what, Dovell?
Multi-factor authentication.
Multi-factor authentication. Maybe you manage systems that are connected. Maybe you're managing systems that are not connected. Maybe you have a secure access need, or your boss made me do this. We already have one Weisenheimer. I knew there would be somebody that would pick that last one. And if you ever been to a GovBrief session, if you'd like us to know anything, we always like to do that as well. Here's what we got so far for the folks. I'll read off the last minute ones as we get closer. All right, here we go. Penny, cover clear goals and no long background stories. Dietrich, no long background stories from you.
Cool.
You can tell he's a man of few words. Crystal is recorded, so playback for anything we may have missed or did not understand. Fantastic. It'll be the best briefing you ever had, Crystal, because we are recording it. Linda, it provided information for the novice as well as experienced user. I think this is important, don't you think?
Yeah.
A lot of times people want to drill down into some really bits and bytes and people go into a coma. And for small as well as large operations, absolutely, I think you're right. Terry from the Coast Guard to learn about authentication options to strengthen security. I think we'll cross over a couple of those, won't we, Dietrich?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Maurice from Justice. Unique strategies are presented regarding information system safeguarding procedures. Absolutely. I think you'll find this to be unique. Scott, we could outline how to streamline data security through single system. Hey, Devel, I do believe
we do.
We're going to be talking about that. All right. So please address, if you have anything in the chat, please. I can't see the files either. So, Urzetta, we're going to fix that problem. I'm not sure what the problem is, but I'm going to fix it. Robin from Justice addresses two-factor authentication to classified system. Bingo. Right, Devel?
Yep.
Michael, any unique trending threats for Alaska, in particular where they're coming from? I don't know that there's anything unique to Alaska, but we got people jiggling the doorknob all the time, don't we, Devel? And so I'm sure there may be something unique, but I don't know what that would be for Alaska, Michael. But hopefully you still get something out of it. Terry from the Coast Guard, information resources and links to them would be appreciated. You'll have those as soon as I figure that out. Terena from Trade, lessons learned, strengthening continuous monitoring activities. I'm not sure about the continuous monitoring thing, but we will talk about lessons learned. Right, Devel?
Yep.
And Terry from the Coast Guard, security issues for those with non-government issued computers. Are we going to dabble in that at all? For non-government issued?
It really doesn't matter. They don't have to be on government computers. It's just that's what we're dealing with today. But we deal with all of them.
All right. Denise, unique strategies are presented regarding information system safeguarding procedures. I agree with that one. Lashida, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. From the VA, what to look for when purchasing equipment and software? What a great question. What a great question. And we will make sure you get that as well as a checklist. I think you're going to get a checklist to everybody as well. Quick introductions. We'll tell you about Access Smart. We have federal cybersecurity priorities that are being continually coming from the White House and other agencies. Authentication challenges. We'll talk about those. We'll get into a couple of case studies, as we mentioned, with HHS and the Air Force specifically. And then we'll get into some of the technologies we're talking about to keep things secure, some best practices for you that you can walk away with today. And then anything else you guys would like to talk about, we want to make sure we incorporate that into this. Like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Power Logon and Power Logon COA. What's the COA stand for, Devel?
Certificate-based
offline authentication.
offline authentication.
Everybody, this is not AI. Did you know that? That's how you know. All right, fantastic. So you started back in 2005, Devel. Tell us a little bit about why you started Access Smart.
Well, I've been in the smart card industry since the 90s, and I was contacted when I was a consultant by a company called Motorola in Dala, and they had a customer that had gotten a security breach, and they wanted to go and make their ID badge to do both log on to their computer as well as get them into the building. And Motorola didn't know how to do it. I did. So I got hired. The software company you might have heard of was a little one startup called Microsoft.
Oh, no, I never.
And they had their source code of Windows 98 stolen. Awesome. And so I came up with the first combination card. They used a contact smart card with PKI on it and physical access. And then in 2005, decided that passwords are secure and we're going to go off and do this ourselves.
So now I love this part about the data breaches, because I actually got into this world a little bit way back when I got into the federal world, came in from the data breach remediation world. And it's usually not the system itself, is it, Devel? It's usually
getting in.
Yeah, the problems that we create. It's usually a picnic problem. Anybody know what a picnic problem is? A problem in the chair, not the computer. So there you go. I'm here all week, everybody. About Access Smart, we talked about that. Let's get into some of the cybersecurity priorities. We have several executive orders so that everybody knows that this is not a political thing. right? It's across all the different presidents. Every president that you see here, we have Obama, we have Trump 1,
Biden.
we have Biden, and we have Trump 2. All of those are dealing with cybersecurity priorities as we learn more about things. So we have those will be in the handouts. I promise that we'll have those for you momentarily. And the latest NIST updates that you'll be able to check out if you want. All of these, NIST has pretty much taken the role of laying out the security, what the security protocols are, requiring it of the government, requiring it of industry as well. We will be talking specifically today about Executive Order 14028, which includes zero trust architecture and multi-factor authentication. So for your own references, you can go back on this. You can read as much as you want. There's plenty out there. Right, Devel?
Yeah.
There's plenty out there. All right, I'm going to end this poll, and I'm going to share that with you real quick. We have a couple of folks that are on the hook for ZTA. We have 3 that are managing connected systems and 3 that are managing non-connected systems. So that'll be very interesting to hear your feedback. We have 73% have a security access need. Shocking. That's a shocking statistic. And a couple of people, the boss made you come. And let me make sure I have, if there's anything in here that anybody wanted me to read. Let's see. Curious about options. That was that was the response for that. All right, so now let's ask this question. Is multi-factor authentication a requirement for the systems that you work on? So that's our poll right now, and that's a yes or no. And maybe you don't know what MFA is. If you don't, we'll talk a little bit about that, right, guys? All right, let me get this cooking real quick. And boom, here we go. Let me share this out for everybody to see. So we'll get through that. And we're going to dive right into zero trust architecture, because I think that really gives us the overview of what multi-factor authentication is supposed to solve. Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah.
And I think the main line right there is never trust, always verify. That doesn't mean that the people we're talking to in this particular briefing are not trustworthy individuals. Would you agree? They are trustworthy. So just walk us through this real quick, and then we'll get into some of the problems that we see.
Yeah, I'm sure you. First of all, thank you very much, Dave, for having us here, and welcome everyone. So, what are we trying to do here? You're going to go through this one quickly. You're all familiar with zero trust. I mean, that's a buzzword in the industry right now. But you have to have some type of identification and verification. Well, the identification you all have is a CAC, a PIV, a CIV card. It's your government credential. You already have those. And who issues those is you go through the process of an ICAM, and they know that it is you. Then you have your privileges. Where are you allowed access to? And that's controlled by IT. Micro-segmentation. Divide the network so that breaches can't be spread. Continuous verification. We do that. Encrypted communications. We want to have that. You don't want the man-in-the-middle attack. You don't want the over-the-shoulder surfer, things like that. And when it really comes down to, and what we're talked about from the very beginning when we started the company, and this is my kind of shocking statement, is that I've always said passwords are secure. And everyone likes, oh, no, they're not secure. Yeah, they are. And when you look at PKI and all the other types of encryptions out there, they're nothing more than glorified passwords. And then you also hear that, oh, we're going to kill passwords. You will never kill passwords, because there are 3 factors of authentication: something you have, something you know, and something you are.
That's interesting. So something you have, something you know, and something you are.
Something you have is your ID badge. Something you know is your PIN, your password, something like that, knowledge. And something you are is the biometrics, fingerprint, facial, all of that. Okay.
Fantastic.
Each one of those factors have strong pros and cons, and you put multiple together so that where one is weak in one area, the other factor strengthens it. And so that's how it compares. And then we do the comprehensive logging. So when you get into that, it's the log on. I mean, when you boot up your computer, log in. When you get into an account, and then log off when you get out of the account. How do you do that? Okay, let's go on.
Give me 1 second. My screen just decided to jack up on me. Here we go. One more time.
But is it why he's doing that? I'll just say when I was talking about how you'll never kill passwords. One of the other things from the other two factors of authentication, passwords are the only form of authentication that is protected by the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
Really?
Because they can, force you to put your finger down, they can take your picture, but you cannot be self-incriminating. You cannot give them your password to give them access to data files.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I've heard a lot of people talk about cyber stuff, but I've never heard about the Fifth Amendment piece. Fantastic. So, all right. So let's take it to that next step. So passwords are part of the problem, right? And take us through now certificate-based authentication. What does that mean, and what is it? What are we talking about with this problem that you're bringing up here?
Well, certificates can be the digital certificates like your PKI keys and stuff that's on all the government badges and stuff. But a certificate can also be a password, and there 99.9% of the attacks are not caused by the security; it's caused by the human, where they come up with very weak passwords. They share their passwords. They put the same password everywhere. And so that's what we're trying to fix, is by securing the weakest link in cybersecurity, which is the human factor.
You gotta love being the weakest link.
Yeah.
I think that.
And so when you look at PKI, what keeps it strong is that the users don't know it. They don't know the keys. They don't have to type anything. They don't have to manage any of it. Well, why not do the same thing with passwords? And that's where, again, you're starting to take the different strengths and features from these other technologies and incorporate them.
Awesome.
And then you have the zero, where when you get into digital certificates, if you don't know, you have to go present your card, and then it has to go through a revocation list to see whether or not that certificate is still valid and up to date. Well, that requires an online system. Well, we do that, but at the same time, you have systems that are offline. And one of the examples I had used in the past was we have one where they were looking at a missile launcher, let's say. And I'm making this up, but this kind of gives you an example. Well, you would not want a missile launcher on the internet where a hacker could get in and launch missiles or redirect missiles or anything. And so, but they still need to be sure that the person who is launching is authorized to launch. And so this is where you're doing offline verification, revocation, using a digital certificate.
And I remember, this is dating me, but War Games kind of had that as the whopper, right? Where they were controlling that. So
you
don't need
play
that.
A game.
That's true.
And so traditionally, your logons that fail because, again, because of the password side of things, where if you get ahead and you start getting the people out of the equation, then you're going to go and start really strengthening things up. Okay, we can probably go on. Yep. And if there's any particular questions, again, I'm trying to go through this quickly in the sense, so I want to respect your time. But please put in the chat or raise your hand. I'm happy to go over any of the details.
Love it. So what credentials does your system require, or do your systems require? And we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts. We do have the session docs working now, so those are there. We're going to continue to add things to those as we go. just to make sure. And I think you got a couple of other docs that when we talked about it, said, you know what everybody would like to have is a checklist. So we're going to have that ready for you as well by the end of the day, I promise.
And that checklist will just list all the kinds of features you want to look for. So if you're looking at other products and other vendors, and I don't go and attack another company's products, because every product, to me, it has its place. And so I don't want to badmouth another company. It's just trying to match the right technology for the problems you're trying to solve.
Agreed on that. And what we're talking about is connected versus non-connected. We have folks from both sides. So this is going to be great because when you talk about connected, and we're going to come back to this slide in a minute, but we have power log. These are your products. I don't want to have you talk about other folks' products, but your products here are Power Log On and then Power Log On COA. The COA being one that's not connected. Is that right?
Yes, that is offline.
That's offline. So when you look at these, your Power Log On, let me make this a little bit bigger if that's all right. Take us through, I know there's a lot of stuff on this slide, and this is in the handout so that you can review this, but just take us roughly through how this works.
Teacher?
I'd like to maybe walk you through.
Yeah.
So basically the key components here of the architecture, and now we're looking at the networked solution. So Power Log On in networks, it could be connected to the internet. It could be not connected to the internet. There could be isolated networks, like air-gapped networks. So any of that, but nevertheless, so you have a network here. And so this Power Log On version is specific to that. So you have, as you see, there's three components in this triangle. You have a Windows, like a server, which is called Power Log On Administrator, which is basically it's a clearinghouse for your authentication. So whenever a user presents the card to the card reader at the bottom there, to any client, the server actually will verify that card is legit, and also will prompt for a PIN. And then only if the PIN and the card is correct, it will grant access and actually transmit data to the client, which allows the client to log in, typically to a Windows machine, to Active Directory, to a standalone machine. There could be an Azure. This could be any type of machine. But it could also be like a logon to like a single sign-on type of application, websites, a VPN connection, or an RDP connection to remote computers. So it has all those capabilities, not just the primary logon, but also single sign-on. So the way this works is interesting, and I think that's the difference a little bit between Power Log On and most other competitors. So we're doing everything client-based. So you can see in the triangle at the bottom, the client receives a package from the server after the full authentication with an encrypted blob. Yeah. And that blob contains the logon information, allowing it to log on to whatever target you choose, like, Windows 80, whatever, websites. So that means for you that actually you can install Power Log On in a matter of minutes or maybe 1 hour without changing anything to your infrastructure. So like your network stays the same, your trust relationships, your AD user accounts, everything stays the same. That's a huge advantage. So there's no intrusion into your system where we require you to change things or modify things under the hood, which you don't want. So it's completely separate from that. And that's basically, since it has this client-based architecture, so everything is client-based. What you can also see, there's a database on top right, a SQL database. This could be like a database already in place, like a SQL instance in your system, and Power Log On can automatically hook onto that and create its own database, but use the same infrastructure. And this contains everything you need, like all the card data, the logon data, encrypted, and it will stay encrypted. So the database is never decrypted. So the data transmitted from the admin to the client will also stay encrypted and is additionally protected with a handshake and session keys and so on. So it's a very protected tunnel kind of, but then it's opened up on the client only to do this one task at a time. So never all at once. So it's only decryption. So whatever we need to do right now is encrypted, but nothing else. So that's a quick overview. I could talk, for another hour on this, but maybe we can switch to the next slide.
Yep. So that's on the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side is the non-connected. So we have folks here that are in the non-connected. Take us through what that looks like, because are we still controlling that? How does it get controlled? Like you mentioned, it's coming from the client base. How does it get controlled now?
Well, the big difference is now basically, so you have no network, not even internal network, just a single machine. So there's no server, of course, because you couldn't connect to it. And so this shows basically the internal architecture. So you have your Windows subsystem, Windows 10, 11, internal functions that are already there. So we use, of course, the resource manager and all the encryption technology that's built into Windows. And of course, there are Windows versions that are FIPS 140-3 certified. So you have to watch out which Windows versions are you using. On top, so the PowerLogon client layers on top and uses those functions. But what's really significant here is basically the card itself. So on the card on the right, you see that card has a certificate. It's typically your PIF CAC card. You already have a certificate on the card. And that certificate actually is not just a bunch of text data, which it is, but it also has an associated key pair, public-private key pair, or PKI. And the private key is actually secured by the card itself. So that chip on the card holds a private key, so you can never read it, retrieve it, copy it, modify it. It's completely sealed, can only be used for authentication purposes. And so that's basically the key strength, that if you present that card, we have possession of a token that cannot be changed. So it's a very, solid authentication. And of course, it's, the same if you use it on an online system, but the trick is now PowerLogon can do that offline and still use the full strength of the PKI key. So we actually, so only with this private key on the card can you decrypt as information correct for correct authentication and continue. And so that's in essence what it does. It's quite unique. I don't think so many products like PowerLogon who can do that. And the nice thing is now we have both worlds. So we have the connected or the network world, and we have the totally isolated or air-gapped world, and can do both.
And most folks are familiar with like the connected world, right? And we're going to use two different case studies, one with HHS and one with the Air Force. So the connected one is typical, right? You have your CAC card, or let me do this real quick because I think let's show what everybody has. They have CAC, 50% have CAC, 100% have PIV, and then 20% physical, if that was spelled right, and then Dunkin' Donuts loyalty card. So that's the Weisenheimer that's out there. So, but that was a great question. Dovel came up with that one, by the way. That was awesome. So, but for the folks that are,
but we could do it. That's the thing. We could do it.
I may or may not have gotten on a plane before with a Costco card because I forgot my license for some. Anyway. We digress. Back on track. PowerLog on the left-hand side, HHS. What happens there? It's the same typical thing that we would normally see, right, Dovel?
Yeah. And it was a typical environment, but they had a large number of employees, each in part of their cyber labs. each employee had access to different groups of computers and servers. And they had like 700 servers. And so they needed a way where they could log in there very easily. But what they were doing prior to our system, they were writing all their passwords down. No. They were putting them all into an Excel spreadsheet.
Were those on sticky notes too? Just for convenience?
Yep. Or they were sharing, and there was no way that the cyber labs were able to confirm that it really was Joe that got into the server and not Mary, because there was no audit trail.
Right on.
So then they had all the different requirements that they need to meet. And so they looked at our system, and we were able to put that whole thing together. And it only took them 3 days to install and deploy.
That's awesome. So Rich is asking, does Power Logon require or can it be configured to establish trust from a government IDP?
IDP?
Hang on a second. I think I know what I need to do. I'm going to let me grab Rich. Hey, Rich, can you go ahead and talk for a second and make sure we're asking answering the right question? Whenever you can. And while Rich is there he is. Did you find your mic, Rich?
Yes, sir. Identity provider. Let's say that you got an app and you need to make a single sign-on with an app over internet, and you need to establish use the PIV or use the CAC for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So the answer is yes?
Yeah.
Any other questions, Rich?
No, that's
all right. I appreciate it. Whoops. I'm sorry, Rich. I cut you off. I hit your mute back up. Just everyone's.
No. Thank you. I'll call Dovell.
All right. Sounds great. Appreciate that.
I mean, what we've done in this whole system is that we do not want to do a rip and replace and completely reconfigure systems. We build on top of what you've already have installed. And so, if you've already got some PKI logged in, not a problem. If you want to add some passwords along because some other application or server only works with passwords, not a problem. Same card. So you're not carrying multiple credentials and you're not having to rebadge anybody.
Love that. So let's talk about the Air Force, because you mentioned we can't say exactly what do you even know what your product's being used for?
Not really. It's top secret. All they would tell us is that they were standalone servers.
They're standalone servers.
Oh, workstations. I'm sorry, standalone workstations.
Standalone workstations. So, so you don't even know what it is, but you knew what the requirements were that they wanted to use. So set us up for this, because this one blows my mind, because here you're going to control it. You're going to control access through your normal channels, right? And yet you don't have it connected. How does that work?
Okay, so first of all, they had to go and use their existing CAC card. They had to use their existing certificates, and they had to use the existing pins. They did not want to have multiple credentials, and they didn't want to have the airmen go and have to learn multiple ways to log on, depending on what they were doing. And they were logging onto their workstations, which were still all Windows powered, so they needed a username password. And again, how can you be sure that the username password that they're typing in is unique? Because they could share it with somebody. So they needed some audit trail. So what we've done, what Dietrich has done, is that we have an administrative station where all of the keys are put into it based upon a revocation list and which person is assigned to which keys. And then they can go and segment that to say workstation 1, 3, and 8 are only going to work with Mary's card. 7, 2, and 5 are only going to work with Joe's card. And they can then control it so that when they go and present, when Mary presents her card to one of Joe's workstations, she won't be allowed in because the certificates are not in that workstation to be accepted, and vice versa. But if she is allowed access, it checks it and says, oh yeah, you're authorized, and away they go. And to the user, all they did was insert their card and type their PIN.
And to your point, it's the same card that can be used on both systems then?
Yes, same card, no rebadging.
That is amazing. Has anybody else heard of anything like that? That's what I find interesting because maybe it's just me, Devel, but I hadn't seen that before. So I think that's great. So let me know if you've heard
one more thing about that.
Maybe
okay. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Diedrich.
Yeah, one more thing. So it's basically not just one system. So you get basically PowerLoggers, an MFA is a multi-factor authentication that provides single sign-on, and it's also credential management, and that's important too. So basically, when you have a real-life situation, there's always people who come in and forget their badge or don't have it at the time, or maybe they really lost it. So you have to find a quick way to actually give out a temporary card or replacement card or do something like that. And then PowerLogger has a full administration piece to handle that very quickly. And that's important because, it's always the ifs and whens and what happens.
Yeah.
And we've done it for a number of years. We went through all of those and optimized basically those, resolving those situations. So it's not just MFA, it's basically just managing the whole thing from a central point. And the management can also be done not just on the networked solution, but also on the core. The core has a manager, separate software, which runs on an also isolated machine, but it has a full, what Jovel just mentioned, so you can exactly determine who can log on where. And at the end of the day, of course, you have to take that information via a token transfer to bring it out to the machines if they're totally isolated. But it's just plug in, plug out. So it handles it automatically. But the management is done on a central machine also.
And a lot of times, like multi-factor authentication that I've seen requires access to a live or phone or something like that. Is that also incorporated? How do you manage that? Because some places you can't get a phone in.
Well, go ahead, Diedrich. Do you want to address that first? And then...
Yeah. Well, so with PowerLogger, so with the network version, so you can actually have per user, you can have up to 5 different devices. And a device could be a card, it could be a secondary card, it could be a token, like a USB token, or it could be a phone. Or it could have all 5 different devices floating around, and they're all registered to you, so you can use them interchangeably, which is great. So let's say if you travel, you might use your token. If you're in the office, you might have a card, but you might have already a replacement card, which is a duplicate of your first one. Not the card, but it would be registered to do the same thing with PowerLogger. So that's a huge flexibility. So it's basically not just one device, but many devices per user. And then also per user, you can have more than one account. So you could log on to not just your main account, but also like, let's say you're an administrator and you have your personal account, you have an admin account, you have who knows what impersonating accounts. So you can have several accounts in one device.
Yeah. And one of the examples where that came up or can come up is that you could get a contractor or even an employee that actually works at 2 different agencies for whatever reason. Who knows why? But each one of them, they want their own ID badge. They want the Air Force ID badge and they want the Army Air Force badge. So when they're in the building or whatever, they're wearing the appropriate badge. Mm-hmm. So this is where they can go and use multiple badges, but still have access to their systems and not have to go and recreate everything. So, and the other thing I wanted to talk about there, I just kind of briefly went over, was the STIGs in the government, or especially in the DOD, because I see there's a lot of CAC users. We went through a self-evaluation of STIGs, and we were able to pass it. So that was key to them for the offline system.
And you kind of mentioned this before, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. You guys can review this on your own, but it works with your existing credentials, whatever they happen to be, right?
Yep.
And
even a Dunkin' Donuts card.
Even a Dunkin' Donuts card, even that. So when you get back into the flow of it, just walk us through this, because I think it's important to tie it right back to what it's supposed to do in zero trust architecture, because that's one of the biggest demands that any of the federal agencies have, and one of the biggest pain points that I've heard over the past several years. So go walk us through this one more time.
So when you get into multi-factor authentication, I've told you what the 3 factors are. A lot of people, it comes up with, it's something I know, so I type in their password, and then they get a code on their phone, and they go and look at that. Well, the gatekeeper is not the device that has the number on it. The gatekeeper is the person that enters it to the computer. So it's the computer as the gatekeeper into the system. So if you've got a card with a PIN and you type that in, great, you got the password in there. But then you get an SMS code, and you look at your phone and go, oh, it's 123, and then you go in and type it 3. That is a no log on. It's something I know and something I know. That's not multi-factor authentication. That is referred to as two-step verification. And when you get down into a lot of these government security specs, two-step verification is not authorized as multi-factor authentication.
Did everybody get that? Because I know a lot of us as vendors are logging into systems, and that's exactly what the system requires. Right. Just saying.
And you brought up earlier, there are places where you cannot have your smartphone to get that information.
True.
Or an email. There's no outside connectivity. So this is where you have your credential, which is something you own. Then you can do 2 or 3 factors. It could be card and the PIN, card and a biometrics, card, PIN, and biometrics. So you could do all 3 factors of authentication. And it's not our algorithms that we use for the biometrics. We work with some of the standard ones out there. So again, it's not a rip and replace and change your whole system. So then once you have gone through that whole process, that, okay, I have the card and I know the secret to unlock the card. Now the computer is going after the card and getting information off of the system, off of the card itself, information that I don't know and I have no access to. It could be the digital keys, the certificates, all of that. So now you're building a handshake between the card and the computer system without any knowledge from the individual. And once it has passed all of those types of tests, then they are granted access into whatever it is they're trying to do. And one of the things that I talked about was that we do the log on, because cybersecurity starts when you first turn on the computer. And it starts at what I call the virtual front door. If you wait for some of these other systems, you have to be logged into the system and pass the firewall before you get authenticated. Mm-hmm. To me, that is too late. You want to be authenticated before they get past the firewall. So this is where we go through that process. Lost my train of thought there. Anyways, so you got the possession, you got the knowledge, the digital certificates, the encryption keys. Again, I don't know any of that. And then we can do a challenge and response using what they call the CHUID, which is the chip user's ID and unique identifier. And this is, again, something that I don't know, the user doesn't know, and the system doesn't know. Only the chip knows that. And so, again, the system is doing the handshaking and approving everything. So this is how you're building your zero trust from the very beginning, that you're issued a credential with your picture on it from an agency that has verified that you are and validated you all the way through the whole system.
I love it. And this, you mentioned this a little bit before, but DDIL stands for, what does that stand for again?
Delayed, intermittent, limited connectivity.
Oh, it's right there. Degraded, delayed, intermittent, and limited connectivity. So all of these conditions that any agency can have varying levels of this, right?
Right.
And just to reiterate, just take it real quick just to see how the process worked with the Air Force, because
Okay.
we used the Air Force before as one of the case studies. So you evaluated and then created a pilot.
First of all, we had a conversation with them, and then we told them what it would do and got them all the data sheets, and they were evaluating that. They said, "Yeah, we want to go ahead and test this." So we have a pilot software kit that includes just about everything they're going to need. Now they don't need a card and they don't need a reader because they already had all of that. That's fine, but it had all the software with some temporary keys, licenses in there. And so then once they went ahead and they tested it, we got on the phone with them a few times. Said, how about this? What if that? Blah, 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 going on. And we helped them tweak the software to meet their exact requirements. It wasn't we had to redesign anything. We just had to show them this is where it works. So they got everything up and running. Once it's up and running, there's no more software to go and install or use. So now they went to the procurement. We don't sell directly to the government. We'd rather go through resellers, and they could be soup contractors, they could be GSA contractors, whichever, because the government agencies already have relationships with these contractors. So why not go ahead and keep that in place instead of trying to build up a whole new system? And then once they got everything up and running, they procured it. We have been doing this since 2021, and they've got over 2,700 airmen using the product. And every year they go and renew all of their licenses. And so the licenses, we just get them a new code, and they're back up and running within minutes.
I love it. So what computer architecture are you working on? Because we're going to talk a little bit about the different architectures now as we go through that. And just make sure everybody is checking all the right boxes, right? Go ahead, Rich. What do you got? You can unmute. Rich has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put my hand up, but I wanted to talk about like .NET applications and other applications and that type of thing, but I don't see that type of thing endpoints listed. I see like just, laptops and operating systems and things like that. Do we have the capability to use .NET applications and other internet apps?
Yeah, I can maybe speak to that. So yes, so we talked about on the slide initially you mentioned, so you can log on to your machine, to Windows, to the network, but you can also single sign on to any application, .NET application, any website. And that's a totally different functionality, but it's all built in, so you get it all in one package. And so there's a learning mechanism, so a recording mechanism where you can train it to basically, learn to actually actively log on to an application. So you do it at one time as an admin, you click record, and the next time basically it will automatically launch it, automatically submit your username, password, whatever you need, could be several account name, whatever you need, and logs you in. So that's, we didn't talk much about that because in most cases, people are mostly concerned about the front door, which is basically the machine logon. And if you have a single sign-on solution, then basically that would work in consort where a power logon would be the front door opening the machine logon. And then your single sign-on, if you already have one, would take over and log you into your applications. But there are always applications that are not part of your SSO, or maybe you don't have an SSO. And that's where the power logon SSO function comes in. So it's basically a client-based SSO versus a enterprise SSO. But
Got it. Very well. Appreciate that response. Thank you.
So we gotta kind of move through these and get the folks out of here in just a minute. So the security architecture you guys can review, but making sure that you're meeting these. Here's a couple of checklists with OMB policy as well as executive orders, NIST standards that we talked about earlier. All of these need to be thought about, right, Dovel?
Yeah.
No matter what system they're using, if they use yours or somebody else's, they got to be able to solve these problems, as well as meeting the compliance and certifications that are required. Again, a lot of these are driven by NIST, but we also have things like HIPAA, right? And another type of securities. Some
the
of the
IRS has their own unique spec.
Yeah, yes, they do, don't they? And best practices for you folks that you can take away today. Make sure you have robust. If you're using passwords, they have to be robust, right?
They're robust, and each password is unique to every single account you're going on to. So you don't have to have any worry about duplicate passwords.
Which is why you have the human problem to begin with, right? Because I have certain passwords that I use depending on the systems that I'm operating under, right? And depending on the security of those systems, right? My banking is one thing versus, my Netflix account, right? So we all have those. But what I love about what you pointed out today, and I think everybody else is going to agree with this, is that one credential handles it all. And if you have multiple credentials, you can do that too, right? Is that what you said?
Yep.
And just as we're wrapping up what the process is, you mentioned this as well when you were doing the implementation for, I don't know if the HHS or the Air Force. It was pretty quick getting them up, right?
Yeah.
So
the only thing that ever kind of slows us down is that the government servers have a lot of security that they have put in throughout the whole system. And so it's just trying to get around, not to get around it, but trying to understand what is it that they have put in place so that our system works through it.
Yep.
And we do.
I love it. And I find that incredible. There's a lot of folks that have the same problems that everybody does here. Recommended next steps. If you're interested, we're going to pop up the what's next slide real quick. And that is asking if you would like to continue the conversation. If you have a specific issue that you'd like to address, do you guys mind hopping on a Zoom or Teams meeting and talking with people about a specific issue? And it may or may not be, but we have some cyber experts here, and especially access in the cyber world. And if you'd like to schedule a demo, if you'd like to discuss a pilot, that's exactly what happened with the Air Force, right?
With the HHS. I mean, they all did the same thing. Yep. We always start people off with a pilot.
Yep.
And I guess the other thing I was trying to remember to say, we talked about log on. And this is when you get into the front door and log on to the Windows operating system. Log in to your applications, your servers, your websites, whatever. But what a lot of the other systems like the SSO don't do is how do you securely log off? And that's just as key as important, because you don't want to have a system where the person walks away and leaves an open node into the network. So when the card is removed from the reader or from the network, you can set it up to do different things. One, do nothing if that's what you want, but lock the computer down, log the user off the system, shut down the computer and turn it off, or run custom scripts, put in sleep mode, things like that. So this is where we also think about the log off component of multi-factor of cybersecurity.
Awesome. We'll get to some final Q&A before we get you out of here, but we want to make sure we get you out very shortly so that you can get to that next meeting. And if you have anything that you don't want everybody else to see, some people are like cybersecurity freaks here, believe it or not, Dovel, and they may not want everybody to know. So send it to that email address. As I mentioned earlier, you are under no obligation to purchase from any vendor, including Access Smart. But if you would like more information, if you would like to purchase, you can get it through Soup 6 holders. I'm sorry, I almost had the faux pas. They have new Soup 6 out there, GSA contract holders. And if your procurement people need a particular socioeconomic direction, not a problem. you will work with just about anybody, right?
Yep.
Devel? Everybody will get a recap email with a final recap. You'll have one very shortly coming out in the next few hours or early tomorrow, which will include the presentation, all the docs, and any docs that we add into that as well, and a link to engage one-on-one with Devel and Dietrich as well. And you'll get a finalized video next week after the video is done. We'll get back to some last-minute questions with everybody, but I want to just make sure that everybody can see your email addresses. They can reach out directly to you for those. Anybody got any last-minute questions before we jump off? There's folks that are asking for a specific issue and folks that would like a demo. So we'll make sure we get the information to the folks at Access Smart to make sure you guys get what you need. So real quick, are there any questions? I want to make sure I go back to the original things of addressing what to look for when purchasing equipment and software. You're going to get that information together, right, Devel?
Correct.
We'll make sure we get that. And any, how about safeguarding procedures, unique strategies for regarding information system safeguarding procedure? I think one of the biggest things we heard today was if you put the right processes in place, it solves the safeguarding issues, would you say? Awesome. Let me make sure there wasn't anything else that I missed. Anybody else got any questions? Please pop that into the session.
Can they do their little thumbs up or stuff like that if they thought this was useful?
Absolutely. Let us know if you thought it was useful. That'd be great. I do have one question from Jonathan. PIV alternatives that meet NIST 863 IAL/AAL level 3. Do you have any idea what that might be?
Yes, and we've gone through that.
Okay.
And we do meet the AAL level 3.
Fantastic. And from you at U.S. Patent Trademark Office, strengthening multi-factor authentication. I think we actually addressed that as well. Would you agree?
Yep.
And one more. I cannot pronounce this name, but the downsides of password managers. We did that too. So I think we did it all. I think we got it. And here's one from Ben, actually from MCC. Increased need for data security, especially with AI. How is AI affecting what's happening these days?
I think everybody's still trying to figure it out.
I would agree with that.
Well, phishing might be one issue.
Oh my
They get more and more sophisticated, and so users can actually not see anymore if it's real or not, or if it's an attack. And so the way PowerLogin protects against it is, so if you use PowerLogin to log into a website, the URL is verified, so you cannot, it doesn't fall into the loop of a fake URL or something like that. So it's all registered with your password, your username, your information, and your account.
And the other thing about AI is that if you keep the same password for a period of time, they're going to figure it out. Well, because of our system and the administrator, they can set it up to where people's passwords, which are now 80 characters long, gets changed every minute.
Every
A
minute.
new password. But as the user, you don't see it, you don't manage it, you don't do anything. You just insert your card and type your PIN.
Wow, that's wild. You're welcome, Ben, and you're welcome, Edith. Thank you very much for your comments. You're welcome as well. Awesome. We're going to go ahead and get you guys out of here. Thank you very much for joining us today. Great job, guys. It's the first time on GovBrief. We appreciate you guys joining us. And very, very thumbs up. I tell you what, I love experts. Love hearing experts. And I think everybody else does too. So we appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic rest of the week, everybody. And if you have any questions, please. Penny says, very informative. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. You guys are awesome. And Penny, thanks for joining us. All right, guys, we're going to let everybody out of here. Thanks for sticking around for an extra couple minutes. Go tackle the rest of your day. Any last minute things from you, Dietrich?
Well, thank you all for attending.
Yep. How about you, Deval?
Thank you. I just
Yes.
thank you. It's a pleasure being able to work with you. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. We'll get you guys out. Great job. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.